Hi students, today I am going to be showing you how to use oil pastels. So here I've got a range of nice oil pastels for us to use. I've got some tissue. It's very important for us to use tissue while we work because oil pastels tend to stick to our hands, so it's nice to just wipe our oil pastels. We could also use it to wipe pigments off of our colors. Alright, let's get started. So here I have a reference photo that we're going to be using. This is one of Paul Cézanne's artworks. We're going to be recreating one of the fruits on the plate. You can use a pencil if you'd like to sketch out your work first. Outline some details. But obviously if the fruit is light or the object you're drawing is light, you're going to need to erase your pencil lines first. But for me, I like using the undertone color. So here the fruit is yellow, so I'm going to use the undertone. So I'm just going to draw out the overall shape of the fruit. Detail in the areas. And that is, not only is it light enough for me to see, but we're not going to see an ugly pencil line. So I'm going to determine now what my undertones are. I can see that it is yellow, some light yellows maybe, some orange, light orange. Then my overtones are dark orange, got a few dark oranges, some reds. Just going to go ahead and observe areas with shadows as well. I can see some greens, some browns, and maybe some black as well. We are obviously going to try our best not to use black as much, but these are the colors that I can see. So I'm going to obviously start with my lighter colors first. I'm going to select it from my undertones, my light yellows, maybe dark yellows, my oranges, and I'm going to put this aside, and I'm going to select my overtones, which are my dark orange, reds, I have a few reds I could use, my greens. That's a nice color. I might use it for my overtones or undertones as well. So my greens, my browns, my black. For those areas. And there we go. It's good to select your colors before you start so you don't get overwhelmed and you can plan your work properly. Now, it's always a good idea to make sure that you're working neatly. Oil pastels, if they go onto your work, it is quite difficult to erase off. So a good idea is to put a piece of paper underneath the oil pastels that you're working on, or even the page that you're working on in general. Because while we're working, our palms tend to get dirty, and if it goes over your artwork, then there's a big chance that it might smudge. So I'm going to start off with my undertones first, the lightest colors that I see, which are my yellows. It's a good idea to test out your colors as well so that you are working with the color you want rather than trying to fix it afterwards. I'm going to actually use white as a blending color. You will see very quickly when you are working with oil pastels, they seem to not really have details, but that's okay. That's the whole point of oil pastels. We are not going to be able to create extreme details with this medium, but we will be able to create artworks that are a little rough. So I'm just going to go ahead and blend out the yellows that I need in areas where I feel there's a lot of lightness. Of course, I always work with the example sheets in front of me so that I can continuously reference the photo that I am working on. Trying to get all of the overall areas. I can press a little bit harder on the areas where it's darker. Just gonna go ahead and blend in with my white. Like I said, I'm using my white as a blending color. So you'll see very quickly, if you're working with oil pastels, there are a lot of white dots here and there. So using our blending color, we will be able to get rid of all these dots. Now I'm going to go ahead and use my overtones. I'm going to identify the areas where I need my oranges. So I'm just going to go ahead and find those areas and put them in. Now throughout the whole art piece, I am going to be slowly blending while observing the colors that I am using, observing the lightness to darkness of the object, picking out the colors that I need, using my lighter colors to blend out all these little areas, blend out the areas where it's relatively lighter. I'm using a little bits of brown now to show a little bit of depth. You don't need to, but I wanted to identify the areas where it is darker. I am now going to use a little bit of red to cover the areas where there's more depth, using the white to blend out those areas. And I'm just going to continue to do the same process of creating a little bit of depth by adding color, blending it out, using darker colors, draw out little details, blending those details out. It's a process. When we are working with oil pastels, it is always good to work slowly, blending our colors in and being able to identify areas where we feel we need depth. So here I'm going to use a little bit more of darker colors. For example, I'm using more of my browns, I'm using more of my black, but always going back and using my lighter colors to blend the details out. As I'm wrapping up my work, I'm going to be using some green to start my shadowing off. I can see that shadows are not 100% gray or black. There's always an undertone to shadows. And since we're working with red, it is a good idea to use a complementary color of red to create a base for our shadow. Complementary color of red is green, so I'm going to use green. I'm going to use a little bit of light gray to blend this out, and some browns to add a little bit more depth and to tone the green down. I'm going to continue to do this while observing all of the little areas that I need to finalize my work. I can see that I need more depth in the navel of the fruit, so I'm going to add a little bit of black to create depth. I can see that I need to add a little bit more depth to the fruit, so I'm going to add a little bit of dark red, starting from the bottom and working my way upwards in order to create more shadows effects and create more depth in our work so that our fruit looks three-dimensional. I still have a lot of lines that I need to blend out, and I'm going to do so as soon as I finish off adding the darkness. So I'm going to use this color to blend up all these little areas that I need. Now I'm going to use my white to blend out everything, brighten up areas where I need to, where there's a lot of reflections, create depth and contrast in our work. And there we go. We never want to dust our work when we're working with oil pastels, so just make sure that you lift your paper up, lightly tap the paper. It's a little bit different to use oil pastels, but never be afraid to use a new medium.